Hi, everyone. I'm coming to you from Corona del Mar, my old roommate's apartment. I know that this has been a really awful time for everybody, and so my expectations of you are super reasonable, but I at least want to keep teaching you if you are of the state where you can actually focus on school. But I understand that your focus might be elsewhere. What I'm going to do is I'm going to record a very short lecture. I'm just going to hit the high points of what you need to know for the first half of our conversation on sponsorship. Obviously, if we were doing this in class, it would go a lot longer because we would have more dialogue. And I just ask that you show me grace because I've never used this technology in this way, so I might be fumbling around a little bit. We are going to get through this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to share the PowerPoint so you can look at the PowerPoint while I am talking, and we will see how this goes. Okay, give me a second. All right, we're doing well. Okay, so we are on chapter 9, which is about sponsorship. And sponsorship is one thing that really makes the sport marketing experience different than other forms of marketing. And the reason is, think about your favorite brand. I have Starbucks, as per usual. There aren't a ton of other corporations that want to align their logo with Starbucks. Even though Starbucks is one of the most popular brands worldwide, if we go into a Starbucks, you're not going to see a Starbucks cup with, say, a McDonald's logo below it, or your favorite clothing company aligned alongside, or your favorite telecommunications company aligned alongside this logo. And so that's one thing that makes the sport experience different than other forms of marketing is sport is so widely spectated that other companies want to promote their brand alongside the sport experience. And so what we call this is sponsorship. So if we go to the first slide of the PowerPoint, you see the broad definition of what sponsorship is. But what we can sum this up is two or more corporations coming together to associate their brands or their products with one another. And the basis for that association, in the industry, we call this association partnership. You could also hear it referred to as sponsorship. But the basis of this association or the purpose of this association is by these two companies aligning their brands together, there's certain benefits that come from that. So on the screen, you see a picture of Staples Center. Staples Center is where the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Kings play. And before this was the Staples Center, or before any stadium or arena was the FedEx Center, the Moda Center, StubHub Center. It was just a stadium. It was a stadium where a team or multiple teams played their games. So why would a brand like Staples, a Fortune 500 company, pay tens to hundreds of millions of dollars to put their logo on that arena or stadium? And so what we're going to get at today is what is the benefit of partnerships or sponsorships? And how do we as a sport team or alternatively a corporate brand like Staples, how do we know that we should actually enter into this agreement? So on the sports side of things, I think your book does a good job of explaining this. We can sell a sponsorship for anything. Last year, the NBA made news when it decided to begin selling advertising on its jersey. And what that amounts to is corporate partnerships or corporate sponsorships. When you study sport, you start watching sports from a different perspective. It becomes less about the game and the players playing the game and more about the business of what's going on at the game. So one thing that I would encourage you to do if you're watching sports or if you have the opportunity to go to a game before the semester is over is look around you and look at all of the advertisings and all of the different corners of that arena or venue. So for instance, we're going to see logos on NBA jerseys. We see advertising on MLS jerseys. We see on a basketball court, the area before the bench is called the apron. If you look at the apron space of NBA teams, most NBA teams have sold advertising or partnership space to the apron area. Those are valued in the millions of dollars. Teams bring in roughly $3 million per year to put a logo for an outside corporation on their apron space. So oftentimes when we think of sponsorship, we think of it as putting a different company's name, logo, or trademark somewhere within the sport company's venue, on their apparel, on their jumbotron, on what we call the ribbon tape. So the ribbon tape is if you go to a sporting event and you look up the LED boards that circle the space where there's advertisements ticking along throughout the game, we call that the ribbon space. Oftentimes that's what we think of as being sponsorship, is just advertising. But as we're going to talk about further in this lecture, we're going to realize the breadth of sponsorship and how many different things sport entities can partner with corporations on to increase their revenue. Okay, so sponsorship is something that American consumers are inundated with. This is an interesting point that is raised in your book, that the average consumer is hit with 3,500 marketing messages on a daily basis. That number might seem high, but when you start really focusing on what you encounter daily, you realize that it's probable that you encounter that many marketing messages on a day. But despite seeing 3,500 marketing messages on a single day, what research also tells us is consumers only remember one of 250 of those messages. So what does this mean? What it means is if you are a corporation spending millions of dollars, like I alluded to, that apron space in front of the NBA bench, that costs $3 million. The jersey space cost in the tens of millions of dollars. The stadium naming rights cost hundreds of millions of dollars. So if you are a corporation and you are aligning your marketing budget for the year and you are deciding to invest in sports sponsorship, it's going to be costly. There's a premium price associated with that decision. So if you are making that decision, you want to ensure that there is what is called an ROI, or a return on investment, on that decision. So what I mean by that is this. Let's say that the jersey space costs $3 million. So my corporation is Bumble. I am a social networking or a dating application, and I have decided to spend some of my marketing budget on a $3 million sponsorship with the Los Angeles Clippers. In spending my $3 million on that sponsorship, I want to ensure that I receive a positive ROI, or a positive return on investment. So if I spend $3 million, I want to make sure that that investment is at a minimum worth $3 million and 1 cent. I want to get $3 million worth of bang for my buck. And so what we have to look at from a sport marketer perspective is how do we create value for Bumble? What makes this partnership, again, partnership and sponsorship mean the same thing. What makes this partnership valuable to Bumble? And not just what makes this partnership valuable to Bumble, how does my brand, so here my brand's the Clippers, how does my brand get value from this partnership as well? So to answer that question, we have some theories in the sport marketing space. The big theory is called sponsor event congruence. Another way of saying sponsor event congruence is called fit. Throughout this semester, I've referenced fit, and I've told you multiple times, we'll talk about this later. Well, here we are. So whenever a sport entity is looking to partner with a corporation as a sponsor, Or alternatively, whenever a brand like Starbucks, Delta Airlines, Bumble is looking to sponsor a sport team, they utilize this model or this theory called sponsor event congruence, or more simply, they look at what's called sponsorship fit. All sponsorship fit is how do these two brands fit together? Is there a logical fit or a logical relationship between the Clippers and this dating app Bumble? And the reason why we look at fit is because of the second point, which is called consumer-based sponsor event congruence. We have to remember that both parties' goals in entering into this partnership center around ROI, return on investment. Bumble, if it's spending $3 million, wants to earn $3,001 because of this partnership. The Clippers are going to have to use financial resources and also human capital resources to make sure that all of Bumble's needs are met in the partnership. We'll talk about that on Monday. What we're talking about Monday is something called activation. The Clippers are going to have to spend money to activate Bumble's partnership. In order for both of these sides to get value from what they're going to spend time, money, and human capital resources on, they want consumers to value the partnership. And so that's what consumer-based sponsor event congruence or consumer-based fit looks at. We look at when consumers hear about this relationship or this partnership, do they think it makes sense? Does it make sense that a company like Bumble, which is a dating or a social networking app, would partner with this team with young players in the second biggest media market in America, in a place near Hollywood in the entertainment industry? Arguably, that makes sense. Would it make sense for Bumble to become the jersey partner for a team in, say, Iowa, where most people get married super young? There's not a lot of activity on dating apps. There's not a widespread entertainment and media scene. That partnership probably would not make sense. So if I'm a consumer hearing about this partnership, seeing this partnership play out, if I'm a consumer and I see it play out in LA, I'm like, that makes sense. That makes sense. And because it makes sense, I'm going to remember that Bumble is the sponsor of the Clippers. And because I remember that, over time, it creates value for the deal. If there's not a fit between the two brands, several bad things can happen. The first bad thing that can happen is I just don't remember this partnership. It's one of those 3,500 messages I'm hit with on a daily basis, and it doesn't stick out to me. It doesn't make sense, so it's not cemented in my memory, and I forget about it. And because I forget about it, I stop talking about it. I don't share about it on social media. It's just not part of my life. And so the return on investment is very low when there's not fit. Secondly, because it doesn't make sense, I might actually speak negatively about this partnership. So I would either say, can you believe Bumble spent $3 million to sponsor the Iowa Hawkeyes? How stupid is that? And at minimum, I'm sharing that sentiment with my friends, so there's not a lot of traction to it. But most harmful to both brands is I'm going online, I'm going on social media, and I'm sharing this opinion widely. So fit, even though it is a marketing theory, it's not a really difficult theory to define or explain, but it just looks at, do these two brands make sense in alignment from our perspectives as the brands? And then we also want to look at how consumers value and perceive this relationship. Do consumers also think this fits? Okay. Sorry if I'm going on, but I just want to make sure that there's no questions and you're not in front of me, so I can't see any hands. Now, the thing with fit is I just gave you the definition. Unlike a math problem, there aren't hard set factors that we look at to say, okay, if you check box 1 through 10, fit is there. Fit is a little bit more abstract. It's a little bit more nebulous. And so what the book does a good job of doing, and what I'm going to do for the next few minutes, is I'm going to tell you the types of factors you could evaluate as a marketer to determine if there's fit in the partnership you're looking at. So the first factors are, do these brands want to increase public awareness and or change the perception that the public has of the company? So oftentimes we will see a corporation who maybe has rebranded itself or is coming out of a big scandal or a public relations snafu, and they need to get back in the good graces of consumers. A great recent example of this is Wells Fargo. So in the last 18 months to 2 years, Wells Fargo made a big boo-boo, and it released a lot of its consumer financial data accidentally. And it was also found to be selling customers products that they just didn't need. So Wells Fargo is in major PR crisis mode, trying to clean up its image with consumers. And so because of that, what a company like Wells Fargo wants to do is it wants to align itself with brands that have positive consumer sentiment. Typically, sport brands are some of your safest brands to partner with because fans love sports and they love their teams, they love the leagues that they support. And so oftentimes what you'll see in sport marketing is brands that are facing public relations snafus will purchase or pay for a sponsorship with a well-established, beloved team to kind of ride the coattails of that team and access the positive consumer sentiment that that team has to gain a windfall for their brand. Alternatively, sometimes corporations are just changing their general business strategy, and they want to get the word out to consumers that our business strategy or our product has changed. So this would be increasing public awareness about whatever the product is, if it's a new brand, or how the product is changed if it's an existing brand. A great example of this in our backyard is Rocket. So Rocket is an inexpensive mobile phone company. It was big in the late 90s, early 2000s, but then it kind of died off. It marketed mostly to the urban market. Rocket is now the field sponsor for the Los Angeles Chargers. So the Chargers field is called Rocket Field. Rocket is spending millions of dollars for this field sponsorship with the hopes that by fans seeing their brand name on the field, hearing about it being announced over the Jumbotron, they will research Rocket and learn that the company has changed its marketing and also product strategy. Okay, so one way we can identify if there's fit is we could see if, one, the company trying to buy the sports sponsorship is trying to change or reinforce its perception in the public or create awareness for its brand. That would be a reason why it would want to partner with a sport franchise to gain a windfall from the franchise's fans and the affinity of those fans for the team. Now, the partners might want to do this, but if I'm the sport team, I need to make sure that this company aligns with my mission, vision, goals, objectives, and tactics. Another way of saying that is I need to make sure that strategically this partnership makes sense. So it's not enough that this company has a problem with PR that it's trying to solve through a sponsorship. That's great. Money's great. I would like to get your money. But at the end of the day, if this doesn't also fit for my brand, and if my fans are going to be upset about this partnership, I should not accept the money. Sponsorship can also be utilized for a brand to be identified as a beloved or a favored, popular, respected brand within certain market segments. So if you want to watch a video, it's on the screen now. This is an example of how sport partnership is used to target specific segments of consumers. The example here is moms. So Procter & Gamble is a consumer goods company selling everything from shampoo to deodorant to laundry detergent. And in 2012, they partnered with the International Olympic Committee to become what's called a top partner or an exclusive sponsor of the Olympics. And the motivator for that partnership was to use the partnership to market to mothers or women. And so they created this really incredible advertising campaign called Thank You Mom. I really encourage you to watch the video, but grab a Kleenex, is kind of sad. So they created this awesome advertising campaign using their partnership. So what Procter & Gamble got out of this partnership was several important things. They got the ability to have the exclusive use of the IOC's trademark. So on your screen, you can see the Olympic rings. Those 5 little circles are one of the most visible and widely known sport marketing tools in the world. Billions of people on every corner of Earth recognize what those rings symbolize. Not every corporation can put those rings on their products. So to put those rings and the words Olympics on your product, you have to be an exclusive sponsor of the International Olympic Committee, which is the organizer of the Olympic Games. Those sponsorships cost in the hundreds of millions of dollars. They are signed for 4-year deals. If you become a sponsor, you are what is called a top partner. So Procter & Gamble spent hundreds of millions of dollars over 4 years to put those little rings on its products and to have the opportunity to place Olympians in its advertisements and to have the opportunity to run these advertisements during the Olympic Games. Procter & Gamble said this is worth it because we are trying to attract mothers. We've done research that shows mothers like the messaging that we're conveying in these advertisements. And because mothers like this messaging, they are going to spend more money on our products, and that money is going to be in surplus of what we spent on this sponsorship. Okay, another reason why a company might partner with a sport entity is to make itself be more involved in the community. So either the community that the team is located or the broader geographic region that the team serves. We are starting to see this a lot more. This boils down to community relations. And the best way to create a fit in this regard is for the partnering corporation to be working with the team on some sort of project that aligns with its brand and whatever it sells, but also to activate the partnership, and we'll talk about activation on Monday, to activate the partnership in a way that shows that this relationship is authentic and it is really tailored not at marketing this corporation, but really getting down at the grassroots level and serving people in the community. We're starting to see this a lot more. I think one of the best examples is the 49ers. So the 49ers, when they built Levi Stadium in 2014, Levi Stadium is in Santa Clara. It is in the Silicon Valley. An interesting thing about Santa Clara is despite being in the Silicon Valley, so in the backyard of companies like Apple and Google, it has some of the worst public schools in America. So there is a great economic disparity in Santa Clara. So the 49ers realized this was happening in their backyard. The owners of the 49ers, the York family, they think education is incredibly paramount. And so they decided to build a STEM education lab, an educational program within their stadium, and then B, on some high school campuses around Santa Clara. So the 49ers went out, did this on their own, got things moving, started building really good, authentic grassroots relationships in the community. This goes back to our escalator model. They are working directly with children. So these children are gaining affinity for the 49ers. They're becoming loyal to the brand. They're on the escalator, and the goal for the team is to move them up over time. corporations began seeing the success that the 49ers were having. And so now the 49ers have partners for their STEM labs. The biggest one is Chevron. This partnership makes sense. Chevron is an oil and gas company. It is heavily invested in the science and technology and engineering space. So it makes sense for Chevron to sponsor a lab in the STEM education space. Would it make sense for a company like Starbucks to sponsor that? Probably not. Starbucks really isn't deeply involved in the STEM area, so that's probably not a natural fit. Now, if a sport team was investing in microloans for farmers, Starbucks utilizes a lot of farming to get its coffee beans, that would make sense. Okay, the next thing that sponsorship can do for a company is it can be used as a tool to build goodwill among decision makers. This is a complicated way of saying sponsorship can be used to entertain people. So corporations have a lot of people that they need to build relationships with. If you are a business person, oftentimes you have a product or a service you are trying to sell. As we learned last week, selling is all about building relationships. Well, a great way to build a relationship is to entertain someone. So what's happened in this corporate environment that we're living in is if you're someone who is sold to on a daily basis, you've kind of seen and heard everything at this point. And so corporations realize that, and they're recognizing that they have to create bigger and bolder experiences for their consumers. What's on the screen in front of you now is a picture of a concert that takes place every Indy 500 weekend. So those people are in what's called the infield of the Indy 500, and you'll see that the stage has Firestone branding on it. So on the Saturday before the Indy 500, Firestone hosts this mega country concert in the infield of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And all of those people that you see there, some people buy tickets, but for the most part, these are customers of Firestone tire stores. And so what Firestone does is it calls all of its different stores around the country, asks the tire salespeople, hey, who are your best customers? Let's do something really special for them so that these people remain loyal to our brand of tire, Firestone, and they don't go and buy a Kumho tire. And so to create loyalty, what Firestone does is it flies these top customers into Indianapolis, it wines and dines them, and then it treats them to this very VIP concert where oftentimes the top consumers get to go behind stage and shake hands with country artists on the big side of things. So build goodwill among decision makers. What that means is it's a tool to entertain. It's a tool to wine and dine. We're seeing this at our own university. So Pepperdine is a partner of AEG. Pepperdine is paying for a sponsorship with AEG. Well, what is that about? We can go back to step one. It's about public relations, but it's also about goodwill, because one thing that we get with the classroom is we get to take top prospects, we get to take other entities that we're trying to partner with, and we get to show them this incredible classroom in one of the top sport venues in the world. You can also generate media benefits from sponsorships. Oftentimes, this is what a sponsorship is about. When we talk about media benefits, what we're really focused on is something called impressions. What an impression is, you can see the formal definition on the screen. You can summarize that by saying an impression is anybody who heard or read about what you're doing. So we measure impressions by looking at number of clicks on stories, number of clicks, retweets, and likes on Twitter, numbers of likes and comments on Facebook and Instagram, how many people tuned into the radio show that I was talking about this product on, so on and so forth. So with the media, what you're really focused about is how many impressions did my story get through every mode of media. Let's go back to that 3,500 marketing messages per day number. your story, whatever your story is about, is fighting through clutter. And so the role of a smart marketer is, how do I craft my story in such an interesting and compelling way that it breaks through that clutter and people are still talking about it? This is where the good marketers stand out from the okay marketers, and the incredible marketers stand out from the best marketers. It's all about creating a shtick, creating something that's kind of different, but it still fits to the larger purpose of the sponsorship. So I would encourage you to click on the video below. It is a hot dog partnership that was signed with the Chicago Cubs. And what they did is they dressed up Stephen Colbert, the nighttime TV host, as a hot dog vendor and had him walk around Wrigley Field doing really funny things with the hot dogs. He then showed that clip on his show, but it also got people talking throughout the day. People were sharing the story widely across social media. The story got picked up by other news outlets. Journalists covered the story, as you can see here. This is a Chicago Tribune news article. So this is an example of a partnership. The partnership is with Vienna Beef Hot Dogs and the Cubs. The goal of the partnership was to get media benefits for Vienna Beef Hot Dogs. The partnership was signed around the World Series time. So this hot dog company is hoping to get its brand in consumers' heads. So as they prepare to celebrate the World Series, instead of buying their competitors' hot dogs, they're going to Vienna Beef Hot Dogs. Another reason why a corporation would want to purchase a sponsorship is to highlight its product features and to showcase the superiority or advantages of its brand over competitors. One of the most critically analyzed partnerships in the sports space is Microsoft's sponsorship of the NFL. So Microsoft has this product called the Surface. It is a tablet much like the iPad. It came out after the iPad, so by the time it came out, most people were already on the Apple operating system. But Microsoft really wanted people to purchase its product, and it said, what better place to show people about the values of this product than partnering with the biggest sport league in America and accessing some of the hundreds of millions of Americans that view it on an annual basis. And so what they did is they paid a lot of money for this partnership, and they also gave in-kind product. So they sent the Surfaces to all teams. And teams, if you want to have a digital playbook on the sidelines, it has to be a Surface. If I'm a coach, I can't take my iPad out to the sidelines because that violates the contract that this sponsorship was negotiated under. So the goal of Microsoft was for coaches to have such a great experience with this technology and to speak about it in their press conferences and to be shown on the sidelines just like loving this product. And the goal there, or the objective, is that by having these coaches speak favorably and positively interacting with this product, consumers would hear about that and in response go to purchase the Surface. So that was the goal. That's not really what happened because coaches were not really familiar with the product and they were so used to the iPad that they actually vocally and publicly voiced their complaints about the product. So if you are trying to showcase your product through a partnership, it's not merely enough just to mail the product to all of the people who will be using it, but you need to provide really strong education about how to utilize it. This ties into sales objectives. Oftentimes you are entering into a partnership to hopefully sell more of your good, whatever that good is. We see this a lot with cars. The example on your screen is an Olympic partnership with BMW and the US Olympic Committee. I'm going to talk about how car companies use NASCAR as a tool to achieve their sales objectives. So data is one of the most critical elements of marketing. We want to access data. Car companies need to access data as well. And so on any given Sunday, there are tens of thousands of people who go to NASCAR races. Outside of the race, there are fan zones. The fan zones have different pop-up activity sections hosted by car companies. So the biggest one right now is Toyota. If you go to the Toyota pop-up section, you will see a virtual reality experience where you can put on the goggles and pretend like you are a NASCAR driver. You can try on NASCAR uniforms, but most importantly to Toyota, you can sit in their vehicles, see how they feel, and perhaps even take a test drive. So while you're interacting with this experience on a NASCAR stadium, you are also inputting your data into an iPad. So to be able to test drive the car, to be able to try on the virtual reality viewfinder, you have to sign in with your name, age, gender, address, phone number, email address. We're collecting the data. And also some more information about, are you in the market to purchase a car? Yes or no? If yes, when do you think you will purchase the car? Next week, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. What kind of car are you interested in purchasing? So the on-site marketers are capturing some really important data that then gets sent up into a CRM, so a customer relationship manager. That CRM is accessible by every Toyota salesperson in the country. So on Monday morning, when these people go back to work, they can log into the CRM and see if anybody in their geographic region expressed interest in purchasing a Toyota. These Toyota marketers now have those people's emails, phone numbers, and addresses so they can follow up with more marketing. Toyota has utilized this for several years at NASCAR races and has seen very positive results. They have had multiple purchases made because of people encountering their product at NASCAR races. Okay, the next big benefit to a sports sponsorship is the opportunity to have what's called product category exclusivity. So if we go back to the Microsoft partnership or the Procter & Gamble partnership for the Olympics, oftentimes when a company partners with a sport entity, that partnership is what is called a product category exclusive partnership. So for instance, Microsoft is the official computer of the NFL. Because it's the official computer of the NFL, if Apple wants to supply its goods, Apple can't do that. Apple can't do that because Microsoft has paid a lot of money for this right. Where we see product category exclusivity play out the most is in the Olympics. So I referenced the TOP program earlier. The TOP program is the official sponsorship mode for the International Olympic Committee. Okay, so you can see on the screen below you some examples of the IOC's top partners. These are Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Visa. These are the only brands that can activate using those Olympic rings, the words the Olympics, can advertise with Olympic messaging and Olympic athletes during and in the weeks before and after the Olympics. Because these partnerships are exclusive, these corporations are willing to spend premium dollar or to spend more money than for non-exclusive partnerships. So the point here is this, is if you are a sport marketer, you're going to have to figure out how to price your sponsorship, and then what does the corporation get by becoming a sponsor? If it's a non-exclusive partnership, so if I'm the Clippers and I'm allowing Coca-Cola to buy a sponsorship and Pepsi to buy a sponsorship, those companies are going to pay less. They're going to pay less because they don't earn the benefit of being the only non-alcoholic beverage activating around this team. But if I'm the only non-alcoholic beverage activating around this team, I'm willing to spend more money on this deal. So exclusivity is something that teams and leagues can utilize to charge higher dollars on sponsorships. It also creates more value for the partner. That's why I'm able to charge a higher price. All right, I promise we're almost finished. We've kind of talked about number 10. So another congruency factor is using sponsorship as an opportunity to gain unique opportunities in hospitality or entertainment. This is another way of saying back here, number 5. With number 5, we're talking about relationship building with decision makers. Number 10 is similar to that, but it's focused more on just what kind of cool experience can you create through this partnership? And maybe the experience is being created to serve decision makers, but maybe it isn't. So again, this is Pepperdine partnering with AEG to gain the unique opportunity of having a classroom in one of the most visible sport arenas in the world. It's Firestone putting on the most incredible country music concert for its prime customers. Okay, naming rights. I feel like you're all familiar with naming rights. This is naming a stadium. You can see the motivations or the rationale for why corporations are willing to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to put their name on something. It goes back to what we've talked about through this lecture: exclusivity, brand building, media impressions. Think about when you're watching a telecast of a game. Oftentimes there's helicopter footage that is shown during the game, and the helicopter zooms in and scans down, and you can see the corporate partner's name. That's being broadcast to tens of millions of people, and so I'm getting media impressions and also brand building benefits. Okay, so if you would like a little bit deeper analysis and a deeper dive into FIT, I would really encourage you to read the articles that I placed on courses. They are under the resources tab, chapter 9, November 14th articles. There's a good article from the LA Times in there about the Lakers jersey partnership with Wish. And I would encourage you to read that article, do some deep diving into Wish's business objectives on your own time. So learn what is Wish, who is its target demographic, what is it doing to market to this demographic, how do the Lakers play into this demographic, and look at what FIT congruency factors likely led to this partnership coming together. Okay, so that is where we are going to stop today. This went a lot longer than I thought, so I'm really sorry. I'm going to upload your assignment into courses. I'm going to explain that via email. If you have any questions, please let me know. I know this is not ideal, but we are all going to get through this together, and I'm really excited to see you in a couple of weeks. I hope you're all doing well. Talk to you soon.